Speaker tonight. You got about 2 minutes, Captain Judy, to get ready. I got your whole biography here. She wrote a book. I read her book. It's a really phenomenal book. You learn a lot about her father and the beginnings of Captain Judy's charter. Everything she's learned is self-taught with her father. She's a self-taught author, a tremendous fisherwoman. She's got a great team of people behind her. I don't know. I promise this one will be in bullets too, although I don't think we can put you in bullets. It's too vivacious. Come on up here, Captain.
Hello, everybody. How are y'all doing? Can everybody hear me? Okay? Okay. I'm Judy, and I want to introduce you to Deidre. Deidre's a captain. She also works with me, and her daughter is a captain also. So we have a family affair, plus we have, how many inshore boats? We have about 8 inshore boats working with us, and we put on more offshore boats this year, so we should be able to accommodate just about anything you guys throw at us in regards to going fishing. I've got a bunch of pictures here, and I thought I would tell you a story about the pictures, if that would be okay. All right, this of course, that's my boat. It was out. That's the name of my boat. It's the Miss Judy 2, and it will carry up to 6 up to 10 passengers. I just had it out in the water and had it all cleaned up. This is one of our inshore boats. These are 21-foot boats. Most of them have deep sides like this. We take a lot of children, a lot of families fishing. These are the boats that we use for the redfish, trout, and flounder. I don't know if y'all saw these birds this year, but we got white pelicans now. And I've never seen that many of them, and they don't do much. They waddle. They don't dive like the other ones do. And these were living on Cabbage Island. They stayed on Cabbage Island, and now they're still here. We saw them the other day going fishing. These are the coolest birds. We'll be 50 miles offshore, and they will actually land on the boat, and they don't have web feet or anything. They land on the boat and they'll rest, and we'll put little bottle caps of water, and they'll drink water. They're pretty cool, but when they get tired, they just fall in the water like this. I didn't get a picture of him, but what he does is he lays like this, and he puts his beak up on his wing, and that's how he floats around and sleeps. So I got this a picture. He moved his head too quick. This is what they call a tropical with a yellow-billed tropical bird. And when I was fishing at the Gulf Stream, if anybody has a boat here and fishes the Gulf Stream, I don't know if you do, but this bird is very important. I probably caught about dozens of 100-pound wahoos under that bird. Not that particular bird, but that type of bird. It seems like that they follow the wahoo, and they mimic every move that the fish makes, because as soon as the fish feeds, the innards float up and they get to eat fresh. So I started watching a pattern, and we would just run up and throw a bait out, and we'd catch them. Because that's how we started catching all the wahoo. Okay. That's my helm, and that's the boat, and that's the boat. All the boats pretty much. Now this is what we've been catching a lot of black sea bass. These ladies, we take a lot of children and ladies. The guys went, so then the ladies had to charter a boat and they went. And if you have any questions, please ask.
What name is the boat?
Well, it started out as a Morgan, but it's been Judyized, so I've changed it so much till I'm not sure what it's a Judy. It's a Judy, custom Judy.
Judy, when was this red snapper caught?
We called it January the 29th. We called it 12.
That's unbelievable.
And what they said was they wanted to catch a big fish. So Deidre, who works with me in the wintertime, we went out and we caught them, just like that.
In low 50-degree water temperature?
Well, actually, I was at the snapper banks, and I caught those fish on, and it was like 57, wasn't it? 55, 57.
57. What would you say the cutoff is for those guys in terms of water temperature?
I think if it gets below, anything gets below 50, because we noticed today, here's what happened. When we had that last week, when we had that, it didn't get over 60 or over 50, the whole week. Well, it dropped the water temperature to 49 degrees. And I was at the KC buoy Saturday, and it was 49 degrees, and I couldn't get anything to bite. No black sea bass. So I had to move out to the L buoy where the water temperature was 2 degrees warmer, but the fish bit. The good news about this situation is, if you want to sheephead fish, you can sheephead fish at the KC and not be bothered by the sea bass, because they're moved out a little bit deeper. So, when the water's real cold, it does make a difference. It shuts them down. Just like I tell you, like we like to sit by the fire, they like to they don't feed very much.
Was this the Gulf Stream?
No, actually, it was snapper banks.
Where you caught the big snapper?
Yeah. So what we did was we caught everything we could catch. That they caught all they wanted to catch and what they wanted to keep. Well, of course, y'all know red snapper's been closed since 2010, and they opened it up for so many days. And when they opened it up this year, we caught everything we could catch for those 5 days. And it was really pretty awesome. But I don't think it's going to be open this year. That's what they tell me. I can't believe it, but... this is a Harley-Davidson gas tank. But inside that Harley-Davidson gas tank is ashes. Now, the lady that bought this was her father, and her father wanted to be buried on his Harley-Davidson. And she told me in the yard that he could forget that. She went and got him a tank. She was not putting his motorcycle in the water. I mean, they got it where it opened up and let the ashes out and everything. She threw that tank in the water, and you took them out.
Yeah. It went right down.
We do a lot of burials at sea. We do a lot of ashes, and we do a lot of bodies. This is the body, one of the bodies right before we dumped it. We were like 75 miles offshore. This bag busted on us. It's a real entertaining. It's not really entertaining. That's another one. See, I devised that. That's another burial that we did. We take them out to, that's the first one we did. See the seat belts?
So, I mean, that's cool. You can do that,
We
really?
do a lot of them.
I mean, I knew the cremations, but the whole body.
You just have to go out to the Gulf Stream.
We put it at 600, yeah.
So they can be like bathed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The one you just saw, that was the first one we ever did. Well, actually, it was the second we ever did, because my daddy did if you'll go back to Mr. Delaney, that's Mr. Delaney. And we did Mr. Delaney, but Mr. Delaney came in a casket. And my father took the casket out to the ocean, and he told me before we went to get the shotgun. Because when he put the casket in the water, it was supposed to sink. He didn't. He had to sink it. We don't let the family go when we take the bodies. We can't, because too much happens.
It's never pretty.
It's never. I mean, I had a lot of stuff that go wrong. Everything goes wrong. I mean, you can't even imagine. I had one had 2 heads by the time I got there, because I tied him up and he was leaning too far, and it was bad. It was bad.
You broke Miss Delaney's leg.
And Miss Delaney's legs got broken. But she was forgive me. I asked her to. Yes, sir.
Did you do Jimmy Hoffa?
Daddy said Jimmy Hoffa was buried under the helicopter pad at the Sheraton. And this is also what he said. Allegedly, Daddy worked for Al Capone for 7 years. And my father wasn't Italian, but for somehow he had a mouth for gab, I guess. He said when they went to Las Vegas, they buried their dead in the desert. When they went to Wilmington Island, they buried him on the golf course. So when they did the golf course over, all I could think about was, oh my God, they're going to start finding bodies on top of bodies on top of bodies. The Savannah, well, it used to be the Overthorpe. The Savannah Indian Country Club used to be the place. They built that hotel so the gangsters would have a place to stay when they brought the liquor in here. I tell you what, when you're just riding around, say, in Tobby Cut, and you ride around at slow tide and you see a piling, just a piling, and you go, well, what's that piling doing there? You know, there's no dock or anything. And what they did was they built platforms, and they put the liquor on the platforms. The one boat could only get so far up into the creek, and they put them on the platform, and another smaller boat would pick them up, and that's how they moved the liquor around. They drank it, and they pushed some of it off so they could go back later and steal some. They stole from each other, and it's horrible. So if you see one of those ponds, if you dig there, you might find some liquor. This is our center console, boats that we take people fishing on. That's isn't that Alan? That's me with an amberjack, trying to hold it. They are good. We have a lot of people who eat them. There's a bad thing about the amberjack. It's got those worms in it, and we always explain that to our customer really strong about the worms, because people get they get all upset about the worms. So if they're not going to eat them, we let them go. We catch some about 70, 80 pounds. These are male black sea bass. You know, the black sea bass are born females, and then they turn into males. And these are two males. You see the humps on their backs? That's from the stress of having to fertilize all the eggs. That's my story. It is a tough job. Just ask them. This is Deidre. This is the boat Deidre runs. This is 31-foot Bertram, and that's her driving. Wait. That's me trying to... I had hernia surgery because of all this, from picking the fish up like that.
What kind of fish is that?
That's a gag grouper, and those are really a lot of fun to catch. And do you know that in October and November these fish move into the artificial reefs, and you can catch them just that big. That was me trying to pick up some of the red snapper that we would kept. And this was a king mackerel we caught last November, which we did have a king mackerel run last year, and it was really cool. We limited out just about every day in October and November with the snakes, but this is a smoker. That's a scamp. Scamp grouper. Yeah, that's another one of those fish we caught on the 29th, just a couple of weeks ago. And that's a vermilion snapper. See how calm it was? It's beautiful. Also, this time of year, the reefs, the artificial reefs, have this all kind of flounder on them. And the flounder when they're feeding, they're out on the outskirts of the reef, because when they're not feeding, they're inside the structure. And what they do is they leave their tail out so they can tell when the tide changes. When I used to dive, which was many years ago, I quit that because I know what's down there. You could dive down and their tail would be sticking out and you could grab them. But then they would know in the current, so they'd back out, then they'd go situate themselves around the structure, and that's how you catch them. You don't catch them on the structure, you just kind of jig on the outskirts of the structure.
Judy, how have you found the flounder bite this year?
It's been pretty good. This one, see the jig? In fact, I bought some jigs to show y'all. That flounder hit a jig, and I think it had a little paddle tail on it. She just bounced it around, and here's how this happened. This is an inshore boat that went offshore. Yeah, this is an inshore boat that went offshore because now you don't have to, these are bigger, but you can get smaller ones like ½ ounce and stuff like that.
Setup.
But the same setup, this is what you need. That's a cobia. We caught a lot of cobia year before last. This season 2014 to me wasn't as good as 2013. I know you caught some that almost pulled you in the water, out the boat. That was an 80-pound fish, wasn't it?
Yeah.
This is my daddy. You see, the reason I put this picture in here is everybody thinks he's naked, but he's not. In fact, I had somebody say, "Why did you put a picture of your naked dad?" And I had to really look because my daddy was crazy. But
Is that an old Johnson?
Yeah, 3.5 horsepower. Go back to that one. This was the boat that we would go mullet jumping in. My father loved mullet, and he loved to smoke them, and so what we do is, on a full moon at a low tide, we go over to Mud Puppy, which is right down from our dock, and we would be prepared for the mullet. Daddy would bring a sheet. First time I went, it was horrible. Pull the sheet up, put the light on it, they'd all jump in the boat, and he'd say, drop the sheet when he had enough fish. Well, the first time I went, they was jumping in me, hit me, and going in, so the next time I went, I put a pot on my head, put a handkerchief around my face, and he let him jump in the boat until he had enough. And then he smoked them in an old refrigerator.
It's hard to keep lit though, huh?
I'm telling you, it was a whole bunch of trouble. It looked like a bunch of trouble to me. That's Deidre again. See that I couldn't get any larger, but Deidre, that's a grouper Deidre caught, but she didn't really catch it. She lassoed it. See, it's not even hooked. The hook's over there. It's wrapped around it. She's cowboy, cowgirl. This is a barracuda. We catch a lot of barracuda. Now that's a big male sea bass, and we caught that on the 29th. This one was a stressed out fish. He was so happy to get in the boat, he passed out as soon as he got there. He was worn out. And there's some happy fishermen with all those grouper. Scamps. They got in a school of scamps. Every one of those is scamps. I think so, right?
Yes, did it on.
The snapper banks is a really natural bottom that's starts about 29 miles off the Wausau Sea Buoy. And it's got a lot of all kind of ledges. It's great. Ledges to me run 160 by 330. Everybody's got their own figuration of how they find the fish. But you could just go out in that area with a fish finder or not, because I've started fishing out there with no fish finder. I started fishing out there with nothing. And I just throw up something out, like a float out when I found a fish. But you could ride around out there and find your own fish. Just that's how easy it would be. It starts about 89 feet, and the backside's about 115. And it holds some really interesting fish. That's what we call a hog-nosed snapper.
Are you anchored out there? Or are you,
No, we drift. We drift.
Power drift or just free drift?
Just free drift. This gentleman, Becky, was asking about the naval towers. The naval towers, it's really sad about the naval towers. They don't use them anymore, and they're in really bad shape. But they, to me, mark the back of the snapper banks. The first set marked the back of the snapper banks. R6, R7, R2, and then you got R8 and R3, which to me marks the beginning of the Gulf Stream or the deep water. The fishing around them is pretty good. If they would just drop those towers for us, that would be something that would be really unbelievable. But we had to take the Navy out there to observe them. What happened was the government had a contract. They had a contract to paint the towers, and they were supposed to spray them off with salt water or sandblast them with salt water and then wash them with fresh water and then paint them. Well, they didn't wash them with fresh water, and they painted them. And boy, it's got a lot of damage. It's really a lot of damage. They've taken everything off of them. They don't make any noise anymore. They don't have any lights on.
They're no longer lit?
No. Most of the time, they don't even have lights on. Some of them, they don't have any source of lights on. Just stay away. Oh, this is my, I want y'all to see this. This is I went to charm school. My daddy told me I had to go to charm school. Then I did. I didn't learn a whole bunch, but what I did learn was 30 different ways to tie a scarf to make you change your outfit. I did learn that with fishing knots, so. These are a bunch of we have a little 5-year-olds. This is a great trip. The little ones in front, they poke the eyes out of the fish. You wouldn't believe it. They weren't crazy then. If you could see, they're trying to put them in each other's mouth. They caught a bunch of them that day, and we had them all cleaned up for them, and they ate them up, but the kids loved it. We didn't go in the ocean. We caught those right in the sound, which is what you can do. I mean, the sound has a lot of opportunity, especially in Wausau. It has really, you can bottom fish in there, catch whiting, you can catch flounder. There's a lot more flounder in there than people think. Summer trout, lots of sharks. Yeah, you wouldn't go swimming if you ever knew how many sharks were in there. I mean, they're huge.
All right, Judy.
It's the
Tell us
truth.
about the shark.
Oh, you mean Mary Lou?
I want to know about Mary Lou.
I'm gonna be honest. Y'all know I've been fishing a long time, right? So nothing should really excite me like this fish did. But he had I was looking at this dolphin just suspended in front of it. It was really rough. I mean, like this kind of rough. And I was telling everybody to hold on, because I was moving back up to the fishing spot, and I saw this huge mammal dolphin, and it was just suspended under the water. And I'm like, what is that dolphin doing? You know, get out of my way. And then I saw her. Then what did she do? Oh, she could care less about the dolphin. I saved the dolphin because he swam off, come right down the side of my boat, and all my people started screaming all the way down the side of the boat off, trying to get my camera out. Of course, it's so rough. I'm falling down, dropped everything. I had to go home after that. The customers would, great white. It was such great white that they tagged, 3,500 pounds, 16 feet long. It just kept coming and coming and coming. And the people, I said, now, you see, my boat's got those rails on the back of it. And I said, we got to get to the rail because we don't want you to fall out of the boat. Well, of course you don't want to fall out of the boat with Mary Lee out there. They told me they had done fishing. They were ready to go home. I took them home.
Did anybody tell you you needed a bigger boat?
I know, I said it. That's the biggest fish I've ever seen in my whole entire life. I mean, do what?
How long was it?
It's 16 foot long.
It was tagged though, 2 years prior.
This is a moray eel, and a moray eel is really kind of cool because when he gets a hook in him, or if he goes out to feed, he can fill himself up, and when he goes to go back in his hole, he takes his tail and puts a knot in it and pushes all the food out by the hole, goes in the hole, sticks his head out, and puts it in one piece at a time. That's what he's trying to do, is get the hook out. But of course, he's got wound up in the line. If you ever mess with a moray eel, I know it's going to sound crazy, but they have inverted teeth, and you have to push them to get them off. You can't pull them. And their mucus is poisonous.
How'd you get it off the hook?
Cut it.
Cut the line, cut the hook?
Yeah, we don't mess with them too much. We try to not kill them, but they won't be still. There he is. He's pretty big. See his mouth? He's ready.
How big was that eel?
He was huge. That was really a big one. So he was in some white coral bottom. That's why he's spotted like that. Purpleback fiddler. That's a really good bait for a sheep's head. Okay, you see this is a regular fiddler. And what we do is before we put the fiddler on the hook, we break the claw off, because if we don't, they try to tangle the line up. But I had this old guy on the boat, and he told me to take the claw and put it on the hook before you put the fiddler on, and it adds that bit of extra scent to the bait, and it really does work good. So break the claw off, put it on the hook, then put the fiddler on. Oh, and the purpleback fiddlers are better than the blackbacks. You know how you see the blackbacks on the dock? They will work, but not as good, and we figured that out because I tasted them. I smushed them, and the purple one tastes better. It's sour, but it's better than the black one. The black one made me sick. It's just, it goes in the leg socket. You know, you just pop it in, and the barb, just pop it right into the leg socket of the fiddler. No, no,
Just past the barb.
just past the barb. We do quite a bit of jigging. I have some customers that have all their own tackle, and they've got quite a bit of money tied up in it. And jigging is really pretty cool because I go to an area where I mark the fish, and you can just tell people Okay, let it down 10 feet or go to the bottom and reel it up 4 or 5 feet and just work the jig in that water column, and this is what you catch. We catch a lot of grouper like that and a lot of red snapper. These are, these are hogfish. Hogfish. And you see, those are lobster, and they were caught right off of this coast about in November. And those lobsters are probably 15 pounds apiece. They're all females, and they don't do anything except get fatter and fatter.
When you catch those?
They dive for them. Yeah, you can't. Well, occasionally we'll catch. In my life of fishing, I've only caught 2 in my whole life. Actually, that's at the snapper banks.
I can't see that. Are they the spiny lobster?
They're spiny. But here's what happens with a spiny lobster. They got all these eggs all over them. The diver told me, he works for us, Greg, he was diving, and he said what happens is they got all the eggs, and triggerfish like the eggs, so when you get the lobster out of the hole, you get attacked by triggerfish. And he got bit on the head, and he got something from it. Something he had to take a lot of antibiotics for. This, guys, I got some drawings in here. This is just a buoy. It's number 11 is what I was going to show you. How, if you ever get a chance where you don't have a lot of current, that chain will provide you a lot of place where you could get some live bait. If you had a sabiki rig, you could drop down there. That's where a lot of bait hangs. And if you didn't know that big chain was there, you know, I mean, we can stop a lot of times around these buoys and drop the sabiki rig down and catch quite a few fish, bait fish. Also, what do crabbers catch in their crab traps? Crabs and flounder. Because the flounder eat the little minnows that come and eat the menhaden that they use for bait. So sometimes if you see a crab trap, if the current's not too bad, you could actually fish around it and have a very good chance to catch a flounder. It's all about the current, though. Watch the current because you don't want to pull over the float and get it all tangled up in your prop. We do a lot of shrimp. We do a lot of fishing behind shrimp boats. And what's behind a shrimp boat, you will never want to fall in the water. You will never go swimming again. Because a lot of times we put a harness on them and on the customer and tell them to hold on, and these fish weigh 200 pounds. Sharks. What they do is, when they pull in the net's turning up all these nutrients, and the little fish are eating the nutrients, and then the other fish are eating the little fish, and then they get up, and you can just pull in there, and they think my engine's that engine, and so they you throw the bait out there. It's unbelievable. I just tell them to hold on, please, to the rod. It's really amazing. It's mostly spinners, hammerheads, and bulls. So bull sharks, a lot of bull sharks. Bull sharks are. Do what? Scallop. I've had, and there should be. I think there's a scallop hammerhead in there. Mostly scallop. Yes, sir.
Are you fishing behind them when they're calling their nets or just when they're trolling?
Either.
Well, sometimes even if they're not pulling their nets, the sharks know to come behind the boats because that provides them food. It's frightening, actually.
They're trolling, they're dragging the bottom, and it stirs everything up and it all comes up. Plus, when they bring the net in, they throw the bycatch off the back of the boat.
And that really does it. And if, occasionally a DNR man will fall off a shrimp boat, and he's going to swim faster than a shrimp boat trying to get back in it, I can guarantee you. Walker, you got that right. These are just pelicans. There's all kind of, if you ever get out there, pelicans always are diving on the menhaden, and then the smaller birds or the smaller seabirds will be diving on like the glass minnows. So that's how you can determine. If you see something like that, you can actually cast around that, and there's sharks and tarpon and all kind of fish underneath those schools. That's what you call a target-rich environment. Don't swim there either. What this is a lot of people like to troll for trout. And this just kind of tells you how, you get in 5 or 6 foot of water and troll the backside. In other words, getting about 15 foot of water when the tide's low, because that's where the trout are staging. And you can troll troll paddle tails or screw tails. And a 3.5 horsepower Evinrude is what you need. I don't know if you can find them anymore, but that's how you catch them. This is what the bridges, all these bridges around here, it's kind of pointing out where the fish would be at the very base of these bridge uprights. And where there, we catch a lot of trout there, and a lot of sheep's head, and a lot of whiting. It's really good fishing. And we catch a lot of redfish around docks. If you find a dock that's got a shelter on it that has a bunch of bird poop on it, that means that the birds know there's bait there. That means there'll be fish there. So if you ride down the river and you keep watching the dock houses, the ones that have all the bird poop on them are the ones that have the most bait fish. So that's how you find the dock to fish at. I had a lot of time to look at things. And this is, we did a little jigging for black sea bass a couple of days ago. And that's a straight jacket, that's a jig and a straight jacket. It's called a lure. I'll pass it around. It's a real good lure for a flounder. It's in there. This was this is somebody that worked for Daddy. My father, he was a mechanic. He was very mechanical. And what that is right there is, he used to have to take the radiators out because of all the hunting accidents they had when they was shooting up bang bang. He got so good at fixing the radiators that he could fix them without taking them out of the car. So that's him repairing a hunting accident radiator. This is a jelly ball here. And that's a crab. All jelly balls have a crab. And sometimes the crab rides on the outside, and sometimes they ride on the inside. They're on the outside today, and there's another one on the backside. And they're generally, the smaller the jelly ball, the smaller the crab. Some of them have 2 crabs, some of them have 1. Oh, and let me tell you about this. See that jelly ball? He's got a crab inside of him. Now, you can take the mucus off that jelly ball and wipe it on you, and it's just like Novocaine. You cannot put a jelly ball in your live well because it'll kill everything in your live well, just the mucus. And just some of the stuff, these are jellyfish. See how long the tentacles are on that? You have to be real careful when you're pulling your line because sometimes the tentacles get on the line and the wind will blow it in your face.
You don't want to rub those on you.
No, that's a man of war. We collected man of wars for the squish people. I've been stung twice by a man of war, and it didn't kill me. What happens is you see how it's just sitting there. It doesn't look like it's very big, does it? Well, when you mess with it, all the tentacles that are 100 foot down or 50 foot down, they bring them in, and the thing gets huge. That's what happened. I dipped it up, and when I brought it in the boat, the tentacles came with it, and it was pretty bad. There he is pulling his tentacles up. This is a jellyfish. You see all those little shrimp? There's a little tiny shrimp around it? Those are broken back shrimp. I don't know how I got that shot from my window, but I did. Some more jellyfish. There's so many jellyfish out there. It's sometime in July you couldn't swim in the water out there. And I think they have like 1,500 stings a day at Tybee, right? We have people come and they'll have it looked like somebody just went a rope around them. What happens is they'll get them on them and they'll start doing this and they'll wrap around them, and everywhere they wrap they leave a mark. On their feet, on their legs. Oh my gosh.
What was that about?
I must have been a monster. I was playing Halloween. That's me. And this was my father. This is how my father dressed me. You notice I had patent leather shoes on, don't you? And I used to fall down a lot with patent leather shoes, so he cut the bottom of them all up so I wouldn't fall down. A lot of redfish offshore at this time of the year. Trophy redfish, we catch them, release them. But we've caught some really good ones. In fact, Deidre's got a new rig that she's dying to show you. But, yeah, you just have to have the sinker and the float. You're going to show them how you just show them where to do it. I pulled we pull this float, you know, like a traditional trout float. We pull it.
Seen you talk before, have seen this rig.
Yeah, y'all have seen this rig before, most likely.
You finished telling the story about how you started with this.
This is a trout float, and trust me, if you put this in the water and pull it behind your boat, it does all kind of things. It runs in the water and just like it darts and everything. And the way we found out about it, Daddy did drink a lot, but he never drank before 5 o'clock. So he said people who drank before 5 might have a problem. So he drank, after that he'd drink a fifth of liquor, then go out. So I think one day we were out and he forgot to pull the floats in, and we started pulling, moving the boat, and the fish actually attacked the floats. So you can use longer floats. But what we did was, we got in a school of redfish, and Deidre put a sinker. There's an egg sinker. She took this off and put an egg sinker on the top of it. So when we were just drifting in the school of redfish, this is how it's floated underneath the water. And she caught a 44-inch redfish on that. So, you know, you can take the simplest things and make lures out of it. All you do is just slip an egg sinker on the front of it, and it just would bob under the water like that, and it came back and it looked like it had been massacred, smashed up.
Have you had success with this offshore trolling as well?
Yeah, I went and I spoke somewhere at one of the yacht clubs for blue water, and of course they don't never want to tell you that they tried anything, and they would never tell you that they learned anything. But one guy did call me and he said, I was at the Gulf Stream last week. I said, well, what happened? I wish I'd have took more floats. He had taken he only took 2 floats, but he didn't want to tell anybody about it. But they destroyed his floats right away because they just crash it.
With anything, or
Just like this. You pull it behind the boat. It just darts all over. And they hit it, and they eventually get hung on it. We've caught tuna, king mackerel, redfish. So, but
It doesn't have a hook, it just, they just swallow it.
no, it's got a hook on the end.
I didn't see the hook, okay.
See, it's got a treble hook on the end. And somebody said, well, why don't you put a hook in the middle? Well, we tried that and it doesn't pull right. It's got what happens is when the water goes through where the line goes through, when the water goes through it darts all over the place.
How you say running wire off of that typically?
Yes, I run wire off. If you don't, you won't never see you float.
About a 3 foot worth of wire.
You can use as much as you want to,
Whatever you want to do.
but we use about this much.
And when you put in your egg sinkers, there's a 5 ounce, 3 ounce, 4 ounce.
Well, on this one you would use about a 1 ounce, wouldn't you?
I was a little bit bigger than that one.
Well, we used a bigger float.
It was a bigger float.
We had a bigger float, but I had made up something just for her to. I looked back and she was putting sinkers on. What are you doing? She says, catching fish. And she wouldn't let me take a picture of it. So.
Have you ever tried it like a cedar plug with just one hook?
I'm sure it would work. Because we used to just pull it so the customers would have something to look at. You know, like, see the fish jump? You know, see the fish jump. Did you see that? I'm like, see what? You know, just see the fish jump over the float. Because we don't want them to be bored. But when you pull this out, people think really that you've lost your mind. So
And how fast?
I pull it about 5 or 6 knots. And I mean, it really carries on out there too. It's really, I'll pass it around. Be careful, this hook is very sharp.
What size wire are you pulling?
You can pull 50, 80. You don't have to put a sinker on it. It would work without a sinker, but the reason
If you're pulling it, I wouldn't do a sinker.
if you're jigging with it, put the sinker in front of it. The sinker takes it down and it floats up and down like this, and it makes the fish crazy. It really is it's amazing lure. And just because Daddy forgot to pull the lines in. That's me. But let me tell you what about that. That's a flannel shirt. And when Daddy bought clothes for me, we would go to the wholesale house and he'd buy them by the case. So that was me going to school. And I'm colorblind, so it's black and white. Oh, and that's me in front of the Sheraton, where Jimmy Hoffa is buried under the helicopter pad. And this is what captains eat for breakfast: Coca-Cola and Vienna sausage. This fish was so big we could. This is a scamp, but this fish is so big we couldn't even get him in the picture. It's a really big one. That was the biggest scamp we caught last year. It was huge. Caught a lot of Spanish mackerel. Now you can really see that that's a nice scamp. You see his tail, how it looks like a broom? There's Deidre showing off again. There's a cobia. That's a big one. These redfish were caught last week. We talked a little bit about redfish. I was talking to someone about them. Right now the water temperature is real cold and the redfish are kind of, they're really lethargic on the bottom, kind of really slow. But if it heats up in the middle of the day and you have a low tide and you're really quiet, you can sneak up on them, up on these flats. They caught 27 catch and release, all slot reds. But they just got on it, but they were real quiet. They were telling me about it. That's one of our captains.
Or offshore.
Inshore.
And the water is so clear right now,
It's scary.
you got to be really still and quiet.
You got to be quiet. You can't run around and scream like we do offshore. That's why I can't fish inshore, because I scream so much. I have as good a time as the customers. This is some trout. That's some of our inshore. That's Kevin, or one of our inshore captains. Matt. Everybody's boats pretty much looks the same. Some of them are flats boats. This is just some of the customers. That's my daddy's boat before he painted it yellow. And the reason he painted it yellow was because the highway department had a bunch of paint they had to get rid of. That that no passing paint. Daddy cut the back of the boat off. I came home and there's twin beds, big old double beds in the back of that. That was the salon area, and it was just all in the open. He took a saw and cut it off. You'll see the next picture. I think I'll show you. There it is. And that's the yellow boat. Just put a new name on it because we hit it so many times with the sinker and the gas till it wasn't hard enough. I was shocked that y'all could even know who it was. It was bad. I found this picture the other day. When I was going to the Gulf Stream, they were doing a lot of war games offshore. And if I'm not mistaken, I think this was the U.S. Navy. This was in the 90s. I saw them fire a live missile. They asked me, which they would never do this now, they called me up and said, vessel headed on 120 degrees at 21 knots, probably. And I look up, I'm like, oh my God, that's me. And so he said, it's the first U.S. Navy warship that ever said ma'am. Usually it's sir, sir. And I said, yeah, this is Miss Judy too. He said, ma'am, you need to tuck up here real close to me because we're fixing to fire a live missile. They fired it to the east, and I got real close to him. And I thought after it landed, we'd just go out there with a net and pick up all the dead fish, but it was pretty awesome. But I had a nuclear submarine go. I was in 1,200 foot of water, and I call it an AWACS plane, but I think it's the plane that follows the submarines, right? Well, he went over me, and then he made a real wide turn. I'm like, what is he doing? He must have told that submarine, there's a boat over there, why don't you see if you can go under him? Well, when he went under me, my downriggers were down 150 feet. And he got hung in my downriggers. He pulled one completely off. Why? I'm talking about cable. Then it got rigged up with the other one, almost pulled it off. If I could have, boy, could you imagine how much money I could have got for scrap metal if I'd have landed that one? I'm telling you. Oh, these are polychaetes. There's some better pictures of them. These worms come out about 3 or 4 times a year in the spring and 3 or 4 times in the winter. And they live in the mud, and it's unbelievable. This is just some individuals, but there they are. That's what they look like. And they're like leeches. If you stick your hand in the water, which I don't suggest doing, they'll stick on your hand just like a leech. There they are. There's literally millions of them. And when I crank my boat up, my exhaust is full of them, and it just throws worms everywhere. And my intake, my raw water intake gets full of worms. Then you have to clean all that out because it'll start smelling.
The fish eat those?
Yeah, yes. In fact, we got some pictures of, in the daytime, they go back in the mud. In the daytime, every now and then you'll have some that they're trying to commit suicide, I guess, on a suicide mission, so you'll see them swimming around out. And I had some people last year call me and tell me that they Armageddon was coming because they saw these worms in the daytime. But fish eat them. These are just redfish we caught, they can catch it inshore. This picture right here, I didn't know, this was before digital cameras. I come upon this in about 200 foot of water, and it was a bait, it's called a bait ball or a roundup. But the baits were like this big. And I took a picture, well, I took a bunch of pictures. On the left side of the picture, it looks like a mako shark. And there was a marlin on the other side, which you can't see too well. That was all hanging. They were all working together to eat those fish. They were going around and around in a circle. If you ever find something like that, you'll find them sometimes, as the Spanish mackerel or roundup baits like that. And they'll just, when they get full, they'll just float with them, and just when they want to eat more, they'll just attack them. But these fish, they get big and tight like that because they think they'll scare the other fish off. This is a sand tile. We used to catch them a lot bigger than that offshore when we were bottom fishing. In fact, we thought they were sea serpents at one time, and here again, drinking could have been involved. But they got teeth and everything, and they got loose in the boat, and they looked like snakes to me. And it was dark, and there's one of the I think that's a scallop hammerhead there. I caught that one right off the front of the beach. Can you see it? Does it look like a scallop with a... Yeah, well, we don't kill them. Everybody that gets to catch a big shark, we have these long pliers, but you have to cut the hook out, and you cut it past, so the bar will fall out and everything. And see, he swam off okay. But the lady had to cut the wire, and she was having a screaming time. I should get some voice behind on this. A lot of people get really excited about the sharks. Yes, convict fish. This is angry squid. See how red it is? When squid get mad, they ball up and they get angry and they're red. So if you're ever out there and you see red in the water, it's squid.
What's that jumping in the water? What's that?
That's a bird. He's eating everything that's jumping, and they got fish feeding underneath them. Oh, Deidre, tell them what this is.
We came in one day and I kept seeing these little, what I thought was like a little black leaf just floating around at the dock, and I finally got down on my knees and was leaning into the water. Those are triple tails, and they are no bigger than my thumbnail. And there must have been a dozen of them swimming around there, which was pretty cool. We checked with the DNR, and in fact, that's what it was. It was pretty cool.
They don't look real. That's how big they get. That's what those little things get. That's triple tails. 1958. Oh my gosh, I was 7. That's the mouth of a spotted sea trout. That's how they grab what they're going to kill. and they hold it, those canines, and before you know it, they've already swallowed and they moved on to another feeding advantage. Leatherback turtle. See, he's fixing to eat that jelly ball. That's a big one right there. When baby turtles leave the beaches, when they go to sleep, I stop the boat I stop the boat and everybody wants to go to the restroom, and I'm standing there and I look around and there's turtles everywhere just floating around like that. And they lay there with it all tucked up on their top so they don't dangle so something won't eat them. But he woke up, he had his head in the water and everything, but there was like 15 of them, but I only got one of them because they went straight to the bottom as soon as they saw us. Leatherback. Before I was a fisherman, I was a skier, a professional skier. Yeah. These are just water spouts. See this right here? That water spout wasn't big enough to pick the water up. And a lot of people get confused and think that is fish on top of the water. That one's big enough. Stay away. You want to know how they say it's raining fish? Well, if it drops down in a school of fish, they're gone. Right up in the funnel they go. That's Wausau right there. Yeah, you could catch them. This one was a sideways water spout. That was over Tybee. Right whales. V for victory. Esther Williams. That's a right whale doing Esther Williams. That's a lazy whale. We figured out that whales, when they get here, when they want to look around, they just stop and put their tail on the bottom and look around. That's what that whale's doing, is looking around. I mean, I've taken so many pictures of them, they just...
You looking for a boyfriend?
I think so. Usually by the time they get here, they done met their boyfriend and they got other problems.
They call it spyglassing.
They call it what?
Spyglassing.
Really? This,
Up in Alaska.
really? Huh. More redfish offshore. The bluefin tuna are here. We don't target them or anything, but they are here. And it takes, that was a 400-pound tuna that was caught in 60 foot of water right off our coast. I guess about 10 years ago. And the reason they caught that fish was what happens when a tuna takes bait is it's instinctively dives straight down, but they're usually in 500 or 600 foot of water. But in Georgia, they're in 60 foot of water, so they run and run into the bottom and knock themselves out. And then you bring them in. We couldn't get it in. You know, we don't know whether we can keep them or not. So I think that's about all the pictures. If y'all have any questions or anything, I'll be glad to try to answer them. We can catch fish year-round here. But if you just want to go fishing inshore, when it's 65, when water temperature gets 65, everything's alive.